Hey everyone, if you check Bitcoin's price a lot, like I do, probably, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 times a day, because I got it on my watch, I got it on my phone, it's just, watching the Bitcoin price is just a pastime of mine. You're probably wondering, how are we still at $58,000 per coin-ish in the ballpark? Goes up a little, goes down a little, but in the range of sort of 55,000 to 70,000, we've spent most of the last 6 months between 50,000 and 70,000. A couple thoughts. One, first of all, totally normal with any asset. If you go back and look at if you take just the most popular, or I guess the Magnificent Seven stocks, which is Amazon, Facebook, Netflix, Google, Nvidia, and I'm missing some in there, Microsoft, maybe Tesla. Anyway, you just go Google the Magnificent Seven. It's the seven most highest performing stocks in recent decades. It's called the Magnificent Seven. So if you take the Magnificent Seven and you actually zoom in on various parts of the last 20, 30 years that each of these stocks have been around, or in the case of Microsoft, probably 40 plus years that they've been around, you see things like this. You see very long periods, sometimes way longer than just 6 months, which is what it's been for Bitcoin, when the price is range bound. It's sort of bouncing around in a range, which is called being range bound. So it just happens. It happens with every asset. It happens with gold. It happens with silver. It happens with stocks. It happens with bonds. It happens with any asset, real estate. It happens with that. For whatever reason, there's just not a big catalyst that results in sort of a catalyst to cause a price to drop or to rise, and therefore it just tends to trade in range. So in this case, if I had to describe what's happening, I've been trying to think of an analogy and about what is going on here? What is a sort of a simple analogy to understand what's going on here? So the best I can come up with is that, every 4 years in Bitcoin, historically, you've had the running of the bulls. The running of the bulls is, again, I'm making this up, but it's a bull market is an up market. So running of the bulls is about every 4 years you have this insane up market where it's been long enough since Bitcoin was sort of new and exciting. The price has been stuck in a sort of reasonable range for a long enough time that eventually the price takes off. And when the price takes off, everything is new enough. The momentum, or I guess I should say the potential energy that's built up is so high that you just get these sort of epic bull markets. And that tends to happen about every 4 years. And if you want to understand that cycle, read Vijay Boyapati's book, The Bullish Case for Bitcoin. There's also he also wrote a blog post called The Bullish Case for Bitcoin. Although the book is better than the blog post. So if you want to understand it, I would certainly recommend the book rather than the blog post. And it's really a very much worthwhile reading book. It's one of the best books on Bitcoin I've ever read. But it explains something called the Gartner Hype Cycle, Gartner, hype, HYPE, cycle, CYCLE. The Gartner Hype Cycle. So if you read Vijay Boyapati's book, The Bullish Case for Bitcoin, he explains the Gartner Hype Cycle and how it applies to Bitcoin. And I've done videos way back that tried to explain it, and so I'm not going to try to re-explain it here, other than to say, please read the book. It'll make everything about Bitcoin's price make way more sense if you read that one book, The Bullish Case for Bitcoin by Vijay Boyapati. So, again, I won't explain the concept, but I'll explain sort of what's going on in this case. So, in this case, let's say you have the running of the bulls every 4 years, and everybody shows up. I think they do this in Spain or whatever. But anyway, people, hundreds of thousands, millions of people come out to see the running of the bulls. It's super exciting. Everybody loves it. It's great, all that sort of stuff. And so in this case, you had the Bitcoin ETFs. And what happened with the Bitcoin ETFs was that everybody showed up early, right? As a result of the exchange-traded funds launching on Wall Street with BlackRock and Fidelity and all the major providers, the price went up, hit an all-time high before the halving. The Bitcoin halving, which I've talked about before, was on April 19th, and never before had the price hit a new all-time high prior to the halving. It was always, you'd get the halving, and then you'd get some series of months after the halving, and then the price would hit a new all-time high, and then you'd get the running of the bulls. And the price would go parabolic, which means sort of way, 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 way high, and then it'd take about a year to sort of calm down and recover, and then it'd do the whole thing over again, and it's done that 4 times now. And again, that's not unique to Bitcoin. It's similar to any asset that has sort of the same, is subject to the same sort of adoption cycle. So if the internet had a price, it doesn't, but if it had a price and you mapped it out, it would be the same sort of thing. On a multi-year cycle, everybody would get all excited about the internet, and then there'd be a time period where everybody thinks maybe the internet's not as hot as everyone thought, and it would calm down a little bit, and then you'd get it again where there'd be a huge bull run where everybody's like, wow, the internet's going to be huge. And then you get a calming period where everybody's like, yeah, but maybe not that huge. Then you get, let's call it the launch of the iPhone, and everybody's like, wow, the internet actually is huge. And it's huge for a while, and then everybody's like, but maybe not that huge. And then you get the launch of the next wave, and everybody's like, wow, the internet's huge. And so, the price of, quote, the internet, even though there isn't a price of the internet, even though there is a price of Bitcoin. So if there was a price of the internet, it would behave the same way Bitcoin is behaving for the same reasons. Now, there's internet stocks, but obviously those stocks have a lot more variables reflective of them. So anyway, back to our analogy. Let's assume that the Bitcoin ETFs got everybody all excited about the running of the bulls 6 months early. Because they happened back in January, and let's say the running of the bulls is sometime in the fall of the halving year, the second half of the halving year. So if you got the running of the bulls in the second half of the halving year, which is 2012, 2016, 2020, and everyone thinks 2024, if you got the running of the bulls in the second half of the halving year, and suddenly it shows up early, and because of the Bitcoin ETFs, everybody thinks that it's going to happen, 6 months, sooner, then the price goes, way up. And we had all-time high prices back in March when the price hit just under $74,000. So again, to stick with this analogy, to hopefully it's helpful in understanding all this, to stick with the analogy, imagine since March 14, which was when the price was just under $74,000 per coin, imagine that the millions of people have showed up for the running of the bulls. The fans are the fans are excited, the stadiums are full, the crowds are lining every conceivable road. Just everybody is so excited about the running of the bulls, and it's going to be that time, and it's so exciting and all that sort of stuff. And then it doesn't happen. And after a couple days, some of the crowd leaves, and they're replaced by other people who actually understand that, no, it always comes. It's just, you got to be patient. Well, another couple days goes by, and other people leave, and they're replaced by other people. And then a month goes by, and some more people get bored. They're tired of waiting. They're wondering if maybe this year there won't be a running of the bulls. And so they leave, and they're replaced by other people. So that's what's happening in Bitcoin. If there was an incredibly long period where people had lost faith in the asset, it would not be bouncing around between 55,000 and 70,000 a coin. It would be dropping. It would be dropping because people would be leaving the running of the bulls, and there'd be nobody replacing them. So the asset would be dropping because there would be sellers but not buyers. That largely is not what's happening. Almost every day, the retail sellers, which are just average random people who own Bitcoin, who have gotten bored. Maybe they bought Bitcoins 4 months ago, 6 months ago. They're just, they're getting bored of the asset. They're selling the asset because they're, afraid maybe they showed up at the end of the party and there's not going to be a party. So they sell, but consistently the Bitcoin ETFs on Wall Street are buying. Major corporations are buying. Everybody who is what I would consider a sophisticated investor in Bitcoin, they're all buying. Everybody's buying. Everybody I know is upping their holdings of Bitcoin. They're accumulating. So the question is, how are we stuck at 58,000 if all the smart money is accumulating? And the answer, to the best of my knowledge, is because the dumb money is not. So every time the price starts going above 50, 58, 59, 60, low 60,000s, some of the retail investors who are like, hey, I can sell my tickets to the running of the bulls to all these new people who showed up, and I can just go home because I've been waiting a long time. They sell their Bitcoin, right? So somebody wants to buy Bitcoin. They're willing to go up to 59,000 a coin. Oh, look, here's somebody that's willing to sell them at 58,000 a coin. Well, they'll buy their Bitcoin. And that's the way all markets work, not unique to Bitcoin. It's the same as all stocks, all bonds, all commodities. They all trade the same way, which is the price is set by supply and demand. And as long as there's somebody who's getting bored or, needs the liquidity or is not sure why they own an asset or whatever, as long as there's a seller, then the buying demand does not push the price up, because why would it? There's, if I'm willing to buy, like I did when I converted my entire Baumgar Corporation 401k to Fidelity's FBTC, which is the Fidelity Bitcoin ETF, which is pure Bitcoin. It's just it's in an exchange traded fund wrapper. When I converted that in I guess it was the first half of July, so let's call it 7 weeks ago. When I converted that, it was at a price of 57,300. Well, obviously somebody was willing to sell Bitcoin at 57,300 in order for me to convert that entire 11-year-long 401k into Bitcoin. Someone was there. MicroStrategy is in the process of buying $2 billion of Bitcoin. I don't know if they've done it yet or if they're about to do it, but they will probably announce sometime this week, maybe early this week, that they bought $2 billion of Bitcoin. Well, somebody's willing to buy it. I mean, somebody's willing to sell it because they're willing to buy it. So a couple thoughts. In addition is, one, we're still sitting at interest rates of 5.25%. So you have basically you can get paid by the federal government 5.25% to sit on your money in US dollars and do nothing. And so, of course, Bitcoin is competing with that. It's competing with people who showed up for the running of the bulls, and they're like, hey, but if I just go sit at home and hold US dollars in treasuries, I can get 5.25% interest at least until September 18. Now, September 18 is the date that the Federal Open Market Committee, the FOMC, has their next meeting, and they've already indicated that they will be cutting interest rates. So that 5.25% interest rate will go away, and the only debate is, what's it coming down to? Are they going to cut by 1/4% or 0.5%, or sort of how much are they cutting? So, and people are all speculating, is it 1/4%, 0.5%, but all those, the more than $6 trillion, which is an insane amount of money, $6 trillion that's sitting in money market funds earning 5% interest right now, that is going to start bleeding out of those funds as soon as the interest rates start dropping, because people who are going to say, well, I was sitting at home getting paid 5.25% interest to not watch the Bitcoin running of the bulls. They're going to say, well, maybe I'm not willing to do that for 4.75% interest. Maybe at 4.75%, I'll go back to the stadium and watch the Bitcoin running of the bulls. So anyway, that's what's happening is the Bitcoin holders are rotating from weak hands, weak as in W-E-A-K, weak hands to strong hands. Strong hands are called diamond hands. Sometimes weak hands are called like lettuce hands, or just, pick anything weak, paper hands, lettuce hands, whatever. But the Bitcoin is rotating from weak hands that are losing interest and are thinking maybe there's not a running of the bulls, maybe the running of the bulls already happened, maybe they showed up late, maybe it's over. All of those weak hands are selling their Bitcoin to strong hands who are showing up, and they are very sophisticated investors. They know there is always a running of the bulls. They know that Bitcoin is still scarce. It is still durable. It is still divisible. It is still secure. Every asset and attribute that makes Bitcoin amazing is still true. And if all of those things are still true, then it is absolutely only a matter of time until we get the next running of the bulls and the price goes way, way, way higher again. It always happens. It always happens because the asset's amazing and because other assets eventually lose value as a result of federal government money printing. So, or a recession or whatever. So hopefully that makes sense. So here's what happens when you have people, have spent the last 6 months leaving the running of the bulls and, selling their Bitcoin to BlackRock and sophisticated investors, is eventually it becomes clear that the running of the bulls is back. So eventually it becomes clear that the price starts to go up, and it'll happen. I don't know. Maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's a month, maybe it's a day. Nobody knows. But eventually the price will start to rise, and it'll go past $64,000, and then it'll break $69,000 for like the 100th time. It's been bouncing around $69,000 just about as much as it's been bouncing around $58,000. Then it will get into the low 70s, and everybody will speculate that maybe this is it. Maybe the running of the bulls is actually happening, and the bulls will run, meaning, bulls as in bulls versus bears. Bulls meaning up market, bears meaning down market. That's a stock market term that applies to, any asset. Bulls are optimistic and bears are pessimistic. That's why on Wall Street they have this like massive metal bull that people take pictures next to, because it's the bull of Wall Street, which is optimistic about the stock market, etc. But anyway, the price will start to rise. It'll eventually get into the 70s, and people will be like, oh, here we go again. So people are going to rotate out. The people are like, the last time I heard it was the running of the bulls, the price went into the 70s, should have sold, and you'll get some selling when Bitcoin gets into the low 70s of people who think I'm selling because we've been here before and every time it's fallen back. And then eventually we'll break a new all-time high that 73,836 or whatever it is, just under 74,000, eventually we'll break that price and people will be like, oh, whoa, 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 we've never been here before. We're in uncharted territory. Maybe it is the running of the bulls. Maybe this is the time. Maybe the thing we've been waiting 4 years for is now actually starting. And then as the price takes off, all the people who went home start coming back, or a bunch of them do. And Bitcoin gets super exciting again. And suddenly everybody's talking about it and everybody's buying it and everybody's researching sound money. And the price starts to climb and it goes, I don't know where it stops this cycle, but, we're at 58,000, I don't know, 240,000, 180,000, certainly, hopefully higher than like 120,000. But regardless, it'll go to some price that's radically higher than it is now. Then it'll take a year dropping back and it'll do the same thing over again, just ratcheting higher and higher and higher. And higher highs each time, higher lows each time. So it's like a ratchet where it just goes and it does that over a 4-year-ish cycle with a lot of, small ratchets, up and down in between. But over the typical 4-year cycle is sort of a one-way up ratchet that it drops back and then it starts the ratchet, but the place it drops to is a lot higher than the previous place it dropped to. And then it'll just do the whole thing over again. So, that's what typically happens. Eventually it becomes clear that the running of the bulls is happening. The sellers get exhausted. There's, sort of nobody else to go home. The buyers are still showing up, which means the stadiums are starting to get packed. The crowds are getting packed. The people standing along the road to watch the running of the bulls is getting tighter and more and more packed. And the price starts rising. And then supply and demand does its thing and the price goes way, way, way high. So as a summary, the running of the bulls is sort of a good analogy of what happens every 4 years. The reason the price gets stuck sometime is because people get bored and people rotate out and an asset, whether stock or bond or commodity or Bitcoin, rotates from weak hands to strong hands. And eventually that period of consolidation, sometimes it's called consolidation, sometimes it's called being range bound. The period of consolidation, the period of being range bound, eventually there is a catalyst. Sometimes it's the exhaustion of the sellers. Sometimes it's some big news event. Something will trigger the asset sort of getting back on track to its fundamental underlying value, which for Bitcoin, I would argue, is somewhere north of $1 million per coin. And then it will start that, one-way up ratchet. And then it gets all exciting. Everybody comes flooding back in. The price goes crazy. And it's super fun. And it's super fun for, between now and I would predict the, last week of October next year or the first week of November next year. So however long that is, 15 months or whatever it is. And it's super fun and it's euphoric. And then the price drops. It spends about a year dropping as everybody sort of, gets overheated and they're like, well, maybe it's awesome, but not that awesome. And that year is painful, but should result in the price always being above the price today, which means you're always up. It's just you're not as up as the euphoria moves to less euphoria and less euphoria. And then, at some point it bottoms at a price that's still, above today, but, not as euphoric as the peaks. And then it ratchets and climbs and it just does it all over again over a typically 4-year cycle that corresponds with the Bitcoin halvings. So that's the update. I think the probability that we get a running of the bulls is extremely high. I think the probability that it happens before the end of the year is extremely high. I think the probability we get to a price that is at least double, but hopefully triple or quadruple or quintuple the current price, I think that probability is very high. And in the meantime, it's patience. What almost everybody's going to tell me once we get to that point is, wow, I should have bought more Bitcoin. Well, you had 6 months. You've had 6 months to buy Bitcoin between 55,000 and 70,000. Within striking distance of, somewhere between 58 and 69, you've had just a ton of time to accumulate as much Bitcoin as you could possibly want to buy in that price range. And I know a ton of people that have just loaded to the gills on Bitcoin at these prices because they know the running of the bulls is coming and it's just a matter of time. So, what does that mean? Well, if you could possibly buy more Bitcoin, I would. The running of the bulls historically has always happened. The price always eventually goes parabolic and it makes everybody feel euphoric and everybody is super happy about whatever they invested in Bitcoin. And in the meantime, it's just patience. It's just patience. All investing is patience. It's holding on to an asset when it's boring or holding on to an asset when it's scary. And that is how everybody who's made a ton of money in stocks or bonds or real estate or commodities or digital assets, of which Bitcoin is the only one worth owning. All of them, that's how they got there. They got there because they're willing to hold on with a death grip when everybody else was selling or everyone else was bored. And then, the reward for that is incredible upside. So my prediction would be the exact same thing is true of Bitcoin. It's just a matter of patience. And at some point, we will stop being stuck at 58 or 59,000 a coin, or at various points we've been stuck around $69,000 a coin. We will stop being stuck, and the reward of holding and patience will kick in, and it'll be euphoric. It'll be super fun, and everyone will wish they had bought more Bitcoin. That's how it always is, and that's how it's always been since the launch of Bitcoin on January 3rd of 2009. Is everybody always eventually wishes they had bought way more. It's universal. Everybody wishes they had bought way more. And so what can you do? You can actually buy more right now while the price is still suppressed, while everybody's still bored, while everybody's still wondering if the running of the bulls will happen. And I can assure you the underlying technology of Bitcoin is as amazing as ever. Every time I use Bitcoin to send, pay invoices, pay, contractors, whatever, every time I use it in actual real world applications, I'm like, this technology is just the coolest thing ever. I mean, the ability to transmit value anywhere in the world in the matter of minutes where nobody in the world can stop you. And it's just clicks of a button. And you're not dependent on the Venmo platform or the PayPal platform. Your account can't get locked. You don't get stuck where, your assets won't move around. It's just this incredible, beautiful, universal protocol for humanity that allows you to transmit value the way the internet enables you to transmit information. Like, the internet is a huge deal because you can transmit information anywhere in the world. You can publish anything you want anytime. It's just this incredible thing. And Bitcoin does the exact same thing for value. What the internet does for information, Bitcoin does for value. And every time I use it, which is often, I'm like, this is just the coolest thing ever. There is no way the world does not adopt this technology as the way we transmit value when you realize, it's Labor Day weekend. Can I wire money anywhere in the world right now? No, I cannot wire money because the banks won't let me wire money until Tuesday morning. But I can send Bitcoin. I can transmit value the entire Labor Day weekend. I can transmit value any amount, anywhere in the world, completely unstoppable, instantly, anywhere in the world. Bitcoin lets me do that. No other technology lets me do that. It's an incredible technology. And again, the reason I believe we will get the running of the bulls, just like we always do, and it makes all that time being patient worthwhile. And again, you just end up wishing you had bought a lot more Bitcoin. So have a wonderful Sunday. Have a wonderful Labor Day. And I'll try to do some more videos. It's been wild in my world. We had a huge article hit in the New York Times about Prospera, where I am president, reporting to the CEO. Huge, 30-minute long read article, in-depth. The New York Times intended it to be a hit piece on Prospera, but they did such a good job just recovering what's happening and all the upsides that it's the article's amazing and everybody's super excited about it. So that's resulted in a bunch of new exciting things happening in Prospera. So I haven't recorded many videos last week because I've just been slammed with stuff related to Prospera and just all the stuff going on with that. But I never stopped checking Bitcoin. I never stopped checking the headlines. I never stopped checking just the underlying technology. I mean, everything is just right on track. Everything is absolutely beautiful. It's just beautiful. So anyway, those are my thoughts. I think very, very exciting times are ahead. And, hopefully I'll get some time this long weekend to record some more videos. So I've got some good ones that I've been wanting to record, and I just had absolutely zero time. So have a wonderful Labor Day weekend, and I'm always here for anything you need in your Bitcoin journey. Have a good one. Thanks.